Okay, we're here with Scott Woods for Art Channel Xero. How are you doing today?
I am flawless. Thank you for asking.
That's great.
It's so good to see you.
You too. I'm here. So I guess I'll start, since like Prince is staring at us from the wall of Scott Woods' gallery. I'll start by asking maybe a little bit of an icebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
You've talked about how Prince inspires you in his legacy making, and I just wanted to ask, what do you think that you've done to kind of be in that stead of creating a legacy for the people that come after you?
So I think in terms of legacy, really, my writing has a lot to do with that, right? So I'm basically just dumping out as much of my brain as possible in case something happens tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So that's my primary legacy, is my body of work. But then, this place, Streetlight Guild, is part of that, obviously, right? I wanted to make a place that could create history and culture. And so once you have a place and a space that's doing that, legacy kind of takes care of itself.
So you're kind of creating a blueprint for people to pick up what they want to pick up for it with the writing and things. And with Streetlight, you're kind of because you're offering this place as something that other people can use to start creating their own legacies.
Correct. Yeah, so, because I book bands and artists and poets and pretty much anything we can do in here, dance, whatever. And I invite them not to do what they would normally do.
Oh,
right?
okay.
I invite them to do original work. I invite them to do things that they've not done before. I make sure that they're paid to do that work.
Yes, and that is very important. Actually,
so
to
important.
mention, it is sometimes I feel like it's so scary to still to ask to be compensated for your work. So when you find somebody who up front mentions that you're going to be, compensated for that, that's got to be exciting for people to work with.
Yeah, certainly, people who are accustomed to not getting paid to do things appreciate it.
Yeah.
But it's not, for me, that's a value that I'm putting out into the world, right? Like, if I give you $5 for doing something or whatever, that's cool. You got paid for whatever the thing is. But it's really important to me that you are able to go out into the world, the art world, the community, the city, whatever. And when you're doing business or just dealing with other institutions, other organizations, other people who want to hire you, commissions, that you're able to say, well, I get paid for this work.
You have the confidence to stand up for yourself.
Yeah,
Because somebody
yeah.
else has been in your corner about it.
Absolutely. And so to me, I can probably, depending on what you do, I may or may not be able to pay you what you're worth. I try. I get really close most days. But the value is the most important thing. Breaking down this notion that people should not be paid for what their value is. Like, it's valuable work. It's real work.
It's not just somebody who's just it's so fun that that's how people get by, just on fumes, because it's just such a great high to make I'm not, it sounded like I was being sarcastic, art is terrible. Art is terrible, pay me for it.
Look, Disney World is an awesomely fun place, but it costs a lot of money. And so you got to pay Disney World what it's worth.
Right.
So, and I like, your art or somebody else's art way more than I do Disney World.
Well, do you want to talk about some of the artists that you really enjoy, or that, Columbus is the home of Amina Robinson and Elijah Pierce? Who are the people that kind of shine out to you currently?
So the artist whose work I have the most of in this space is Richard Duarte Brown. I actually need to go around and count how many pieces of his are in the building. It's at least 12.
He probably has to put some here to make room for more.
And these are some of them.
Right, so yeah, these paintings here, this series was part of a documentary actually, for a musical piece by Mark Lomax. So and that's the kind of thing I'm into. I'm into layering and stacking and comboing artists, right? But Duarte, is somebody who has been doing it for decades, right? He's not young anymore. And when we came into each other's spheres, you know, he was pretty much resigned to what he was doing, you know, just kind of selling a little art on the side, but mostly working with youth and not worrying about being in galleries or shows or museums or anything. And when we met, I was like, well, look, I don't want to change that for you, but I think that your work has some legs. I think you can be in more places and doing more things, which he embraced, you know, as a challenge. You know, he's a maddeningly prolific artist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and if you give him a thing to paint, he will paint on it. You know what I'm saying? So chicken bucket, whatever, he's gonna paint it.
I think I gave him a skateboard the other day.
Yeah. And he's into it. He's all about that. And so, to me, he is like the one artist locally that best represents what we're capable of as a community. And I say that not just as a black community, but as an artistic community, and even as a human community, right? And I can't say that about a lot of people in Columbus, but I can definitely say that about him. He's carrying a lot of spirit and love for people in his work.
Yes, he works with, is it called In Transit?
Transit art. And it's really important to me to hold up his work like that, because I don't want Columbus or the museum or really anybody to make the same mistakes that we've been making with our black artists who are
Which
great.
is just like ignoring people.
Yeah, we get to them, or we get to them too late, or we never get to them.
Or only get to them when somebody points out that there's not enough diversity in our programs or something like that.
Yes. So like Elijah Pierce lived one block behind the art museum for years, and they ignored him until he was almost dead. Amina Robinson, you know, lived in the hood her whole life. And while they did give her props, you know, she wasn't the only one, you know. Kojo, you know, largely went ignored. Wally Neal went ignored. And then when these people died, we're only kind of catching up to their body of work. And I'm like, yo, this is an opportunity. And I've told the museum this, and they seem receptive to their credit.
Okay.
You know, I was like, yo, this is an opportunity for us, all of us, to collectively rectify that with at least this artist, an artist who deserves that.
Yeah. So your gallery, Streetlight Guild, when was that established?
So we opened the building in 2019. I had been doing some programming as Streetlight Guild a little bit before that, but even further before that, I'd been doing lots of programming. But as Streetlight Guild, officially in a building, 2019.
Okay. And you said that one of your early goals was to kind of use it as a hub to like kind of radiate culture out into the community. So I wanted to ask you how you feel like you're doing on that goal and like what current goals would be.
Yeah, so I wanted to remove certain questions from whatever dialogue might be happening locally, right? So, you know, is there black art of note in Columbus? The answer is yes. We've answered that question. What's next?
Stop asking that question.
Right, yeah, let us now proceed to move on, right? Is there culture here? Yes. What does it look like? We're still figuring that out. Let's build on that. And so my job, as I see it here, is to remove questions. Can black people work together? Can black artists, you know, do the kind of work that is worth shows? That kind of thing. And so if I had to kind of score how we're doing, I would say we're doing really well. Artists who kind of come in contact with any of the stuff that we're kind of doing, you know, they have the opportunity and they take it to go on and do more work, better work. You know, the arts institutions in this city are always looking, they're the first people in the door when I have an exhibit, right? They come in, they're the first people in the door, and they're always looking to see, they're here to see whatever the exhibit is, but they know that all of the art in here is local, except for like one piece. All of the art that I have in this building is from a local artist. And so they're just constantly like looking to see who's doing what, do they like it, blah, 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 you know, that kind of thing. Which is what it's for. I'm 100% okay with that. Come steal my artists. They're not my artists, they're our artists. So, look, come there. They would be more than happy to take your money. You know?
Yes.
They would love to be to take you up on your opportunities,
Mhm.
And so that's part of what this collection is about too. It's kind of like, to put it in a crass terms, it's like a big Rolodex,
Mhm.
right? You come here, you see who's doing what, you ask around, you learn some things.
That's really cool too, because that seems like almost like old school.
Mhm.
It's like everything is digital, but like this is an actual in person. You can meet somebody, like you can see what they look like,
Yeah.
in real life.
Well, I mean, like if you're an art institution or an organization looking for art or whatever, you want to see it.
Mhm.
You want to get a sense of what they're capable of in person, right? Like all they're really gauging online is, yeah, that art looks good, but what are their numbers? What's their audience? Blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And I kind of remove all that. I'm like, it's about the art. What do you want to see? And all the other stuff will come
Mhm.
if the work is good.
Do you have like more set current goals or?
Yeah. So, so far, pandemic year aside,
Yeah.
we've been doing performances and events and that kind of thing here. And obviously the second floor doing gallery shows.
Mhm.
That's all been really awesome. For the pandemic, I was like, okay, but I want to level it up. I always have like a 3-phase plan in my mind for this space.
Mhm.
And interestingly enough, while the pandemic shut down our ability to do events and in-person things and things with audiences, it did open up the time and bandwidth to do some of what I call the capital projects here. So for instance, to your question, one of the things I wanted to start doing was not just presenting culture here, but creating it.
Yeah.
Well, you need a place to do that.
Mhm.
And so, and this is kind of exclusive, but I'm cracking open the third floor as an artist residency, a long-term artist residency.
Oh.
We're putting in 2 art studios in the basement.
Okay.
One of them is a kiln room. It's a clay room.
Mhm.
The kiln's out back. We just have to install it.
Mhm.
So we're in motion.
That's really exciting
Yeah,
to have
right?
artist residencies. That is like
Mhm.
such a I don't know. That's like the dream.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the third floor. The basement will be more communal, right? Like the clay room will kind of be a situation where people can come like one day a week and do their thing.
Mhm.
And the other one's a little bit more of an industrial, maybe paint space, whatever. But same deal. People will be able to come in off the street, in theory, and do your thing.
Mhm. Can we talk about the current show that's going on at Streetlight Guild right now?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So Lance Johnson
Mhm.
is currently exhibiting some work under the title Post No Ills. It's kind of his catchphrase. And Lance works with a lot of what he would kind of determine like graffiti-based street art kind of situation.
Mhm.
But still very abstract, right? And so he's kind of blending styles there. So a lot of aerosol work, that kind of thing, a lot of stencil work.
Mhm.
He's started to incorporate figures into some of the work, which is kind of dope, right?
Mhm.
Normally it's just very colorful, very abstract, and very emotion-based. And then he'll put text, there's a lot of text in his work. But now he's starting to kind of amplify with a little collage, a little figure work, that kind of thing. And so the exhibit that he has upstairs has a blend of things, right? Some things that he did, but some new things as well. He's started doing work in tapestries,
Oh.
which is a newer thing for him.
Mhm.
So he has these large tapestry works. He has one inspired by a local watering hole upper cup. So there's one tapestry that's made out of just coffee bean bags,
Mhm.
right? Because he just loves hanging out there. And then some other surprises as well, right? One thing I will tell you about his exhibit that's completely different than what we've done before is it expanded the gallery.
Okay.
So normally the gallery is just kind of a 2-room situation, but, and I have a couple of offices upstairs that I would normally rent. One is obviously still a studio, but the other one was empty
Mhm.
currently. And so we took the opportunity to just expand the exhibit into that open space as well. So almost the entire second floor at this point is his exhibit,
Okay.
where normally only maybe a third of it would be. And that's been really dope, right? Like if I can figure out how to like keep paying for whatever that office rental would have been, I may keep it as gallery space because it's really, but you know, that puts a lot of onus on artists to come in
To create that much.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And some of them can and some of them can't, right?
Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't want to be flippant. I guess like during the pandemic, it's been really tough, but I know I've created a lot of work. So I don't know what everybody else has been doing.
Yeah. No, there's definitely.
Because I disappeared.
Yeah. I mean, no, there's definitely been a big output amongst, you know, peers and stuff I've been noticing. Yeah, for sure.
The gallery is fascinating to me anyway, because, you know, I love giving people like their first shows but it's not just first show type stuff, right? Like I love turning that space into things that the artist is so inclined. So for instance, when Tiffany Smith did her first show here, did you catch that at all?
I don't think so.
I think you were gone by then. But like, she was doing like all kinds of things. You know, she was doing like her normal kind of clay and ceramic type stuff, but she was doing also her leather stuff. She did some metal work. It was just a lot going on. And there was this whole spirit infused in her exhibit about her mother who passed away some years ago. And so she just really wanted to honor her mother in a particular way with the exhibit. And so we got to talking about it, and she just had all these memories of just kind of just hanging out in the kitchen at her mom's. And I was like, well, how about we turn part of this gallery into a kitchen, an old school kitchen?
Yeah.
And so I went out, got cabinets, got sink, put cabinets in the wall, put curtains up, all old school, right? Got my mom's old dining room table, put it in there. And people thought it was a working kitchen.
They were like, they didn't go in there.
Yeah, I was like, yo.
Like, turn on the water.
If there was their first time here, they were like, yo,
that
this
smell?
kitchen.
The hot comb on the oven.
I was like, and we really decked it out. And then of course we tear it all out, which is the thing, right? Like for me, Streetlight Guild is like one big laboratory, right? And so if somebody has it in them to kind of do something in it, you know, and it requires some stuff or it requires some, you know, some infrastructure, I'm down.
Conceptual
let's
things.
do it. Yeah, let's do it, man. If we need to knock a hole in the wall, I mean, it's just drywall.
Oh, okay.
Right, that's how Lance got the paint on the walls, right? So, which I had never let anybody do before, of course.
Yeah, that's brave.
Now you got it. Now the floodgates are open. I know about it now.
I guess.
Frank knows about it now.
But yeah, I was like, right when Lance was starting to set up his exhibit, I was like, well, I need to repaint the gallery. I need to refresh it, touch it up. It's seen a few shows at that point, so it was looking a little rough around the edges. So I needed to repaint it all and everything. But then Lance was, he was like, his move-in day was coming up. And I was like, you know, I could paint it for you, man, or we have an opportunity here to really do something a little different. And so naturally, Lance was like, yeah, I'll paint on the walls, So that's how that happened. Artists, when they're setting up, a lot of times, if you don't just tell them everything and drop a whole bunch of gallery rules on them, they'll have questions.
Yeah.
Can I do this? Should I do this? Da, 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 da. And I love working with artists under those conditions.
Because then it leads to like more ideas. You know, that's really cool because I think that normally I have kind of gotten a little bit of like either a rejection or kind of like, you know, for not conforming to some of the, not doing anything crazy, but not like conforming to some of the ways that they want to display it. I don't know if anyone's ever said to me, you know, we can work with this. They, you know, more than like, you're not framing this right or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are traditional ways of doing things, right? And there, you know, and it's all, every gallery has a philosophy behind it. Most of them are white walled galleries that are pretty flat because they want the art to speak for itself. And the art does pop if you put it in a space like that. My walls are off-white for that reason as well, but in the event that an artist wants to do something different, I'm like, I'm all for it. You know, let's, you know, if I gotta buy something for it, you know, we got a little money, let's go ahead and buy a pedestal or whatever you need, you know, so let's just do it. I just want, you know, there's a lot of places to see art in the city of varying degrees. There's a range. I won't say there's a lot, but there's a range of places and ways to see art in Columbus. And I want this to be unique. You know, I want it to feel very different when you come here.
How can artists who want to get involved with the Streetlight Guild start the process of, you know, reaching out to you or getting involved or coming up with ideas for what they would want their show to be, or how does that go?
So I have learned to book the gallery out pretty far now. And so currently, the gallery, you know, assuming all things are equal with the pandemic, our gallery is booked out until next June.
Oh, okay.
And a couple of those are shows where an artist, maybe like a solo exhibit or whatever is the case. The next exhibit will be a showcase or a collection of artists. But a couple of those will be in-house exhibits, things that I'm curating personally, which is something that I did a lot of, well, not a lot, I did several times prior to doing Streetlight Guild, but I haven't done it since. I've just kind of worked with other artists to get their thing realized. But, you know, I miss it. You know, I did a couple of really awesome shows. Gentrified was a great show.
Yes.
Right?
I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Record player and
I mean, all of that, right? Like, and those were like in other places. If those were in my place, I mean, come on. I got a show that
you have rooms.
I got
You
rooms.
have
I got the
spaces, you got
time. I got the
corners,
key.
You
Right?
got chairs.
I got everything. So, and you know, like an exhibit opening here traditionally is a very hip thing, right? Like, there's usually some kind of work in progress video playing or a lecture, and all kinds of things are happening when we do opening nights. And so I'm really kind of looking forward to, while it's been awesome working with the other artists, and I will continue to do that, I also am looking forward to doing some in-house shows. But for anybody who's looking to kind of get into that, they should just show up. You know, when we're open, just show up.
Simple as that.
Reach out. Yeah, I mean, I'm mad accessible when it comes to Streetlight. Outside of Streetlight, I'm a ghost. But when it comes to Streetlight, if you reach out to Streetlight in any way that we're on the internet, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, you know, I'll respond.
I know that's true. I remember when I first met you, it was none of the, you know, kind of wall of like, oh, you need to be at a certain tier or you need to approach me in a certain way. It was like, oh, you do art? What kind of art do you do? Oh, that's the kind of art that you do. This is how you can join us. You know, I mean, it was through social media that we first got in contact, but there was no apprehension or anxiety on my part to reaching out to you because you were so welcoming. So
well, I mean,
thank you for that. But that's like
I try, you know. But I mean, your art makes it easy.
Oh, well, you know.
I was like, when I see a dope, like a really dope artist, I'm like, yo, what are you doing and what do you want to do? You know, I'm mostly concerned about what do you want to do. You know, because if you're like an artist here in Columbus, I'm pretty sure this is not where it ends. Not to say that you're going to move away, but I know how Columbus art is in terms of its platforms, its venues, its whatever. You know, the machine of it, the art industrial complex of it. You know, they only understand art to be certain things. So for instance, you know, galleries were the thing, and now, you know, murals are the thing. And I'm like, all right, this is all dope, but you know, I just really want to get into what the artist wants to do. I don't want you chasing those things because that's what's happening or that's where the check is. Tell me what you want to do, we'll make it succeed.
Well, and with your personal projects that you're talking about that you've curated, you're actually really not as interested in permanence. You're very interested in like kind of these shows that are have their idea based, they're conceptual, and they might be over in a day. With if you want to talk about like Gentrified or the New East Songbook, I think I said that wrong.
New Black East Side Songbook.
Okay.
Yes, so I'm really into moments. Like, you know, social media is a beautiful thing when you used appropriately. But for the most part, there's nothing like seeing things live, being able to touch things, being able to talk directly to people.
Mm-hmm.
All of those are largely, social media cannot duplicate those things 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I'm all about drawing people out of their holes, out of their homes, off of their couches, to come see something unique, original, Columbus-based, generally. And yeah, I think that if you make it too easy for them, they won't participate.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I tell you this exhibit's only up for one night,
You gotta come out in the snow.
yeah. And now to my, in my defense, Gentrified is the only one that I did in one night,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like Record Play was up for, several weeks, a month, I think. And some other stuff like when I did Hey Moo Show, that was up for about a good month. But
Well, you did the project where you had everybody create a song. There was a song in you, and maybe you posted that on social media.
Oh God, yes, those. I done so much I done forgot.
Yeah, well, I got it all. So
Yeah, no, so I'm very much into that. As you pointed out, it's important for people to to shake people out of complacency.
Mhm.
For lots of reasons.
So you talk about how Streetlight Gallery is kind of a hub to filter culture out.
Mm-hmm.
So when things from the culture get out into the mainstream, can they exist in a way that is positive for us? Have you seen it kind of get out there and benefit the artist or the community? Can we filter out culture without only getting anguish in return?
We're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're definitely at the part where, traditionally the problem used to be no one knew where the artists were or if they even existed.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know, right? We know that they're there. We're more aware of them. They're certainly making, some of them are making themselves very easy to find. Which
In
is good.
Columbus,
In Columbus, right. And, again, that opens them up for other opportunities and that kind of thing. And then I think that's where the wheel kind of falls off the wagon.
Mm-hmm.
They're being asked to do things that maybe aren't what they normally do or what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
They're just kind of doing things that, they're being asked to do or that they think are safe to do. And I think, a lot of them, for instance, the whole mural movement that we're seeing now, I think a lot of that is kind of in that vein. It's like, let us, get the credit for asking, these black artists for doing these things. But, let's not get the message too revolutionary. Let's not make it too, something that, the random person can't digest. Which to me is, kind of an interesting way to approach that, considering that the fact that black art exists at all is enough to set some people off.
Right.
So why not just let them make the art that they want to make,
Mm-hmm.
within reason, as opposed to, kind of what we're doing now. So, not to throw any shade on anybody, but I think we're not there yet. We're not at the place where that art can just be out in the world and that culture can be out in the world, unapologetic yet.
Mm-hmm.
There are spots and there are artists and there are, flare-ups, but nothing consistent. We're not there yet consistently.
Do you want to talk about what the Rhapsody and Refrain project is?
So yes, every year except for pandemic. Actually, I take that back. We did do it in the pandemic. The last couple of years, I've done this series of poetry readings called Rhapsody and Refrain. And the idea is that Columbus has enough awesome poets that you would want to see one every day for like a month. And so for the past 2 years in September, I've booked a poet to perform each night, every day in that month. And so the first year that I did it, those readings took place here in Streetlight Guild, except for the Wednesday night readings. Those happened at Cafe Kerouac, because I had a regular open mic still running at the same time. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do double work on Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just have them do it at the show. But otherwise, everything was here, and it was so dope. It just generated so much awesome community. The poets had a chance to kind of, really do this long form expression of their work,
Mm-hmm.
which many of them did not get to do very often. A few of them never before.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was this beautiful thing that just kind of built up this great energy and community. And then when the pandemic hit, we did it again, but I made them all do it online.
Yeah.
So they were on Facebook Live or Instagram Live, or whatever platform the poet felt comfortable with. And then it would be my job as a curator to just make sure that whoever was looking for that knew where to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very big on artists just focusing on the art, and then I am your steward, I do all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great too. But I didn't do it this year. I took this year off because we were really about to reopen as a venue, and I just wanted to kind of focus on that.
What's the best advice that you've ever been given that you think that other people could benefit from? I know I'm on the spot. You might not be able to think of the best advice that you've ever been given in your life, but what's some good advice that you think is good to pass on to people?
Just do the work.
Do the work.
Do the work. Don't worry about if it's the best work. Don't worry about if you're going to finish it. Don't worry about if somebody wants to see it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Just do the work. Everything that I have, it's not because I bought it or paid for it. It's because I did the work, and then something came after that
Mm-hmm.
in response to the work.
That's really
Not in response to my brand, not in response to my hits. It was, did you do the work? So yeah.
That's really refreshing advice. That should help. That I feel helped.
Then my job was complete. Shut her down.
I've one last question. It's a silly question.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of the comic book Static from DC Milestone?
Yes,
Okay, so the tagline for Static is "Don't start none, won't be none."
of course.
So my question is, if you could stop any static
Mm-hmm.
in the history of whenever,
Mm-hmm.
what would you stop?
Racism.
Oh, well, that is very tip of the tongue.
Shut it down. Do you know how much energy Black people waste dealing with racism?
Mhm.
Like, we would be like 100 times more dope than we already are
Mm-hmm.
if we didn't have to deal with that.
Right. Where does that stop? Where did it even start? I'm not saying where did racism start, because I'm just like, where do you stop it from?
Yeah. But it's dope. Like, it's kind of cool because like Streetlight Guild is like the place where you can come and like racism doesn't go away,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you go in our bathroom, you'll see all this like racist imagery
Mm-hmm.
from the past, but that's to remind, right? But when you're in spaces that support you without that kind of in the mix,
Mm-hmm.
at least consciously, it's your work is so much richer and deeper and freer. I'm really into freeing people.
You don't have to worry about the double consciousness. You can
Or
kind
the
of
gaze.
be your,
Or if the gaze does come, it comes on your terms,
Mhm.
right? So white people come in here all the time, right? They're a really big part of my audience and
Mhm.
support base. But they come in here with a certain spirit. Most of them come in here with a certain spirit and understanding
Mhm.
that they are stepping into space that is ours, not theirs.
They're
And
decentered.
exactly. And so somewhere in the middle of that, we can engage and have a different conversation and maybe even do different work, and you leave out of here changed,
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, Scott Woods.
Of course. It's so good to see y'all.